Shahedil Hack. Now, he's 59. He's been living at a retirement home in Reading, near Reading. And he's moved in his 28-year-old wife and their twin 3-year-old daughters into his £110 a week retirement flat in this retirement home, which is called the David Smith Court building. Now, the residents have tried to kick him out because they say, you can't have your family here. This is a retirement home. These are elderly people. We can't have 3-year-old kids running around. You've got your 28-year-old. Not sure you quite understand the nature of this building. It's a retirement home for elderly people. He qualifies, the rest of his family doesn't. So they have sought to evict him, and he successfully challenged this eviction, you guessed it, under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, his right to a family life. And when he said, well, you knew the rules, you knew the regulations, the rules surrounding residents, he said, oh, well, no, I didn't, you see, because I'm from Bangladesh and I don't speak much English. I don't speak enough English to understand the rules of this building, and so as of now he's been allowed to stay, and so has his family. So these poor old people at this David Smith Court retirement home are being driven to distraction by these little kids running around, apparently causing havoc. They complain of excessive noise levels and antisocial behaviour. Funnily enough, his wife is in the country on a spousal visa, and his kids are British citizens, so they must have been born here. Mr. Hack, we don't quite know his immigration status, but he is seeking to stay in this retirement home because and so far the courts have backed him because of his right to a family life. And how could he have understood the rules of this retirement home? Because he couldn't read them, because he can't read English. You couldn't make it up.
I don't even know what to say. It's just so tiresome. You know, there are people in this world who are catching spaceships out of the air with like robot arms and building robots that are like humanoid, and we're discovering whole new forms of matter to be able to envelop these amazing supercomputers, and we're going to go to Mars and all this stuff. Can't we focus on this stuff? But we can't, not you and me, I mean, but the country, because we're having to babysit all these people from the third world. A man with his, 31-year age, relationship age gap. I'm not one to shame this, but that does seem quite interesting as a small feature of this story. Also, if he's 59, what is he doing in a retirement home? That's not the legal age of retirement in this country. So presumably he doesn't work, and so presumably
he's on disability benefit, of course.
Of course he is, of course he is. I'm sure it must be terrible. That's why it must have struggled to get him all the way from Bangladesh to here. And, you know, there are only, what's the population of Bangladesh? Sort of getting on for 100-odd million people, of whom probably not that many, you know, only several million people are 59-year-old men who could all come over here and claim to have a bad back that we'll put up. That's not too bad, right? You know, the economy is going so well, we can definitely afford to take all of these people who don't speak any English and who don't give a fig for our country and don't care about any of the rules or the customs or the norms, or caring about anyone who's spent all their lives paying into this system. Why not? Let's just open the door and have them all come in. Why not? It's racist not to have the whole world come in, right? We're just bigoted people for not babysitting this man.
Yeah, for the literal-minded among you out there, Mr. Price is not being entirely serious here. And the reason I wanted to talk about this story, James, is that it comes hot on the heels of the fact that we've just learnt that at the very least a third migrant has just successfully blocked his one-in, one-out flight back to Paris on the grounds of the European Convention on Human Rights and his contention that he would be a victim of modern slavery if he gets sent back. So that's 3 we know of. One yesterday, 1 this morning, and this guy, this new one, an Eritrean, was due to go back on a 9 a.m. flight tomorrow morning, and it has been blocked. So that's 3 that we know of, but it is thought that there may be quite a few more who have successfully gone to the High Court and persuaded judges that they cannot be deported under the terms of the one in, one out scheme. I always said this was going to happen. I always said that the human rights lawyers, the immigration lawyers will come in at the 11th hour and they will say two things. First of all, right, the one in, one out scheme. You're picking, if I've got this right, I'm being a lawyer now, if I've got this right, you are picking 1 in 17 migrants randomly, and they are the ones that are going to be sent back to France. Now, I say to the court, it's unfair that you picked my client. You can't just randomly pick someone. That is not fair. Any judge is going to go, do you know what, you're right. And then if a judge said, well, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles, you're going back anyway. Immigration lawyer, wait a minute. I've got the European Convention of Human Rights for you. Modern slavery. Oh, fair enough, he can't go back. So, you know, only, it seems to me, 2 people in the entire country didn't see this ongoing chaos, this ongoing debacle of the one in, one out scheme falling apart at the seams as the court rejects or blocks their flights back to France. The only 2 people who didn't spot this coming, didn't see it coming from a mile off, Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, who came up with the plan. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
I just don't even know, again, how to even comment on these stories anymore, because, you know, what does the good book say? As the dog returneth to his vomit, so the fool returneth to his folly. And, you know, and I thought that we've now got rid of Yvette Cooper. She's gone off to the Foreign Office after her amazing job in the Home Office, and Shabana Mahmood has been briefed as the most effective operator the government has, was going to fix all of this. But as you say, we've gone from one in, one out, which, by the way, one in, one out wouldn't even fix the problem, right? By definition, the problem stays in numerical terms.
The problem's numerical, isn't it? It's numerical. Swapping foreigners does not exactly the same amount of French people coming, or French migrants coming from France, as British migrants go to France. That doesn't numerically achieve anything, does it?
Right, exactly. And if we're talking about numbers, by the way, I don't want to seem unnecessarily cruel. Eritrea is, as this most recent person's from, is one of the most awful places on earth. The reason it's so awful, by the way, is that ever since it broke free from Ethiopia in the early 90s, it's been led by an evil Marxist dictator who was trained up by Chairman Mao when he was training in China in the late 60s, and is a Marxist, and therefore they have no growth economy, because that's what happens with all Marxists, so let's not elect one here, by the way. It's a horrible place, and there is a law there, that you can have a sort of permanent conscription where it's impossible to get out of the army. And that is an awful thing, and we should use what levers we can to try and depose that ghastly, evil little dictator who's been there forever. But it also means, therefore, that if every single Eritrean person is under that rule, then theoretically, every single Eritrean person who can get to Britain will stay here forever. And Eritrea is a very poor, backward place. It has a lot of different custom norms than we have here. We don't have the space for all 5 million potential Eritreans or 6 million to come here. So what are we going to do? Where are we going to house these people? This is the absurdity of our laws. And it's not just Eritrea, it's dozens of other countries where the conditions are not as lovely as they might be in Belgravia or Islington, where these judges all live. And therefore they could rightly claim, well, we just get to stay here forever now. We cannot do that. The country would fall apart, obviously. And that's why these laws need fundamental root and branch, and I'll say reform with a small r.
Listen, we're running over badly, but I've got to run something else past you. I've just seen pictures. Right, what I'm going to put before you is the potential embarrassment, 2 days of humiliation that will, I think, define Donald Tripp's state visit to Britain due to Keir Starmer's appalling lack of judgment appointing Peter Mandelson as ambassador to Washington, and the fallout that we are witnessing before our very eyes right now. The King is apparently furious that this is going to be something of a humiliation, because all the media questions You know, Mandelson was in Epstein's birthday book. So were you, Mr. President. Your thoughts on Peter Mandelson as, you know, the pedo's pal, as Washington ambassador, etc., etc. Of course, Donald Trump he says that his entry into that birthday book that Peter Mandelson's in, his 50th birthday book, is a fake. But that's by the by. The reason I'm putting this to you, I've just seen pictures. Yeah, I think it's called, you know, that very long, mile-long impressive walk or walkway thoroughfare to Windsor Castle. I think it might be called St George's Way or St George's Walk or something like that. Anyway, you know, very iconic long view of Windsor Castle. Some protesters have put this most enormous picture all over it. I mean, you're talking football pitch size of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together. This sort of protest will define this visit, and every media session, every media question session, pressers as we call them, will be just packed with questions about, oh, Mandelson, he's in the book. What about you, Mr. President? Keir Starmer's lack of judgment in appointing Mandelson has turned this state visit into almost a national humiliation, I think.
I mean, I hope not, because although it's fun to take the mick out of Keir Starmer because he's such a disgraceful little toad, I am a patriot and I do want this country to succeed, and I do think that the special relationship with the United States of America is our most important relationship by far, both militarily and economically and culturally and all the rest. And so I hope that this is a roaring success. And if that means, you know, Starmer gets a win out of it, then that's fine by me, because some things are more important than politics. But I fear, Kev, as always, that you are right. And his appalling judgment, the appalling judgment of his chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, who I think must go for this, by the way. I mean,
yep,
I suspect
I
that
agree.
Starmer will defend him at PMQs tomorrow, like he did Angela Rayner and Mandelson in previous weeks, and then we'll have to get rid of him at some point as well, probably maybe after this visit is over. And by the way, people who are watching, if you feel annoyed by this, you feel powerless, literally, if you're unlucky enough to live in a constituency represented by a Labour MP, send them an email and say to Starmer's MPs how upset you are by this, how embarrassed you are by this, and let's see if we can get this guy fired by the end of the week, because, you know, frankly, it has been, as you say, a national embarrassment for us. Yeah. I hope that it doesn't cause lasting damage, but I fear that it might.
Yeah, and in future you're going to get this, right? You get these cabinet secretaries, cabinet ministers who find themselves in trouble in the firing line, saying to their colleagues, I think I'm finished. I'm in bad shape. I really think this might be the end game. Why do you think that? Well, Keir Starmer's just gone in the House of Commons and expressed his full confidence in me. I mean, you know what I mean? Oh, dear. James.
It feels like the end of a government, doesn't it?
It really, end of days. Starmer's got to go. He really has, and I don't say that lightly. James, it's been fantastic to have you on the show, as always. Thank you so much for your time.